is a Dominator sitting on top of a stock 292 Chevy 6-cylinder. I'm just crazy enough to try it, and I did. And guess what? It worked awesome. It worked mostly awesome. It worked a little bit awesome. You'll have to watch the video to find out what it did. But it did go on there, and it did run. I ran the Dominator. I also ran a 4154 barrel. I also ran a 500 CFM 2-barrel. I also ran the stock carburetor. I also ran long tube headers. I also ran a spacer under the 500 2-barrel. And then there's other stuff that I'm forgetting about, and I don't even know what it is. But that's there too. That's a lot of stuff to cover. Let's get going. Okay, made some runs with everything stock. Obviously that exhaust is not stock. It's kind of stock. Stock carburetor and everything. Now we're going to switch over to the Holley 2-barrel and find what happens. Then we'll try the spacer. Cool. As you can see, I've got the gasket on here for the stock carburetor. Got a little crack in it. But I also put these studs in just to fill the holes, the ones we're using to mount the adapter. Okay, here's something very important if you're putting on this 2-barrel. The gasket is directional. It goes on like this and everything works fine. If you flip this around like this, and it'll still go on, then the blades won't open. So don't do that. We've got the Holley 2-barrel installed. We've got a couple things we had to change. Obviously the linkage. Go to throttle. That's not a big deal. This thing does not have, I would need to drill and tap this thing for provision for the vacuum advance for the distributor. That's kind of really only for drivability. Once we're at wide open throttle, it's just going to be all this centrifugal advance anyway, so that's not a big deal. We've got a different fuel line. Got an AN deal going up over there. Run the 2-barrel Holley and the spacer. Spacer did nothing. The Holley definitely picked up power, but now it's time for the exhaust. So I'm going to install a set of headers. After we cool this thing down, we'll start taking it apart, swap out the exhaust. So here's something I definitely do not like about the factory exhaust manifold, and that's the fact that it basically shares heat with the intake manifold, which, as we know, is not a good idea for performance. It's got this valve inside, wah, 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 except that when it opens up like that, it's sending hot air into your, I mean, it's just heating the intake manifold. And sure, it's good for drivability and mileage and stuff, but not ideal for performance. So that's why I thought that the header was going to add a lot of power. But this is a stock exhaust manifold, or do I mean, I think I mean turbo manifold. That's where the exhaust flows up into the intake. Kind of warm up the intake charge, you know, for that good fuel mileage. Not ideal for performance. Alright, we finally got the headers installed. It took a little bit of extra work, a little clearancing here and there, a little cutting, but they're on. So now I'm going to put the collector extensions on, carburetor, should be back to it here. So we're going to convert it back to just the 2-barrel Holley without the spacer. Put the short studs on. Make sure that we orient our gasket properly. Got our carburetor back on, the linkage hooked up, and some long tube headers, got our 2 collector extensions. We might want to run longer ones than this, but we'll start out here. See what she does. Okay, now we've tried different jetting on the 2-barrel with the headers, and I'm going to put on the 4-barrel now. Twice as much. Yep, it's finally on. Dominator. Off the stacks. Put the headers on. Wonder how it's gonna do. So here's our first stock run. That's all stock. 145 horsepower, 247.5 foot-pounds of torque, revving it all the way out to almost 4,500 RPM. I'm not doing the picture in the box thing, so we're going to take a look at it this way. This is our stock one. So here's what happened when we installed our first modification, which was the Holley 2-barrel. So the 2-barrel definitely helped power. The torque was up. It was basically up everywhere. This was a good gain, 158 horsepower. You know, good gain from the 2-barrel, despite the fact that we're breathing through a 1-barrel. So here's what happened when we put headers on. The interesting thing is in red. So we got more torque down here from the headers, and you can see that in the air fuel. I mean, it got a lot leaner there. Actually lost a little bit out at the top, which was interesting. Now we went in and played with jetting on the 2-barrel and stuff to try to find that back. So here it happened when we installed the 4-barrel. This is a 4150 Brawler, and I think it's a 650. So it's the green, more torque, and a little bit more power through kind of most of the curve. You know, it's limited by the size of the hole in that intake manifold. So here's what happened when we installed the Dominator. Dominator now is red, so it made less power than the other guys. More power than the original one. But the interesting thing is, if we take a look at this, it can make the same power as the others. So that's why when we went to wide open throttle. So wide open throttle, which is now red, it basically makes the same power as everything else because we're just restricted by the hole. But it did not want to take wide open throttle down low. There just isn't enough signal to basically meter the carburetor and stuff. So obviously a big Dominator, not ideal for a 292-inch inline 6-cylinder with that particular intake manifold. Honestly, I think with a better intake manifold, I think it would be a lot better. But I still think the 4150 probably would be the ideal choice. But the 2-barrel worked good too. These are our runs. Now it's time for some boost. See guys, did I tell you the Dominator was awesome? But it's like 50% awesome because sure it worked better as a 2-barrel than a 4-barrel, but I actually did get the thing to take wide open throttle with all 4 barrels open, which was cool on a Dominator, especially since it's on a little 6-cylinder Chevy 292, the other guy's motor. But the 4150 worked great, which is why Clifford and Offenhauser and all those guys make 4-barrel manifolds for these. This thing really needs camshaft and it needs ported heads, and who knows, I haven't done a leak down or compression test on it. Maybe it needs rebuilding too, I don't know. I was expecting more power from the headers because I wanted to see a big jump in power. Now, going to the 2-barrel Holley actually helped things. We saw a power gain there, which was nice, but I got tired of seeing the thing make like, you know, 155 to 160 horsepower on every pull. So tomorrow, and by tomorrow I mean today as you're watching this, I'm going to be testing boost because we know boost is definitely going to make a difference. So I'm going to blow through that Holley carburetor and just kind of see what happens. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll keep testing.